Recently, obviously, with the pandemic facing the world, we've obviously had to start working from home as a studio and adapting our working methods that way. I guess we've developed and changed the pieces and the collections that we were working on for people's homes and to focus on that as opposed to commercial spaces. All our pieces are currently made in London, so we use local manufacturers and craftsmen to produce our pieces. Whether it's made from metal or wood, we try and source our materials as locally as possible as well. Using local production means that we can oversee every step of the production process. We can go to the lumber yards to choose the timber. We can meet with the carpenters very quickly to oversee the pieces being made and work with them to develop details depending on the processes. I think trying to work out how to produce pieces as sustainably as possible and to, not to have as little impact as possible on the world, and that includes shipping as well. I think we need to work out new ways to ship.
As a creative individual, I think the word community is very important for me in design community. I believe it's all about conversation. It's a two-way street. It's never a brief and just a transaction. It's always an emotional conversation between creatives as well as enablers. I believe all members of the design community should be in some sort of relationship with each other, whether it's in friendship or in constant conversation, however. One of the most important challenges that the design industry faces today is probably the marriage and the balance between function and form. I believe that we've been through quite a history of exploring function and form, but especially with the new challenges of current social, economic climates as well as environmental issues, I think it's really important for designers to create and design something that is future-proof and timeless. As a photographer, I see different spaces come alive in different lights. So a morning sun could be an entirely different emotional trigger to an afternoon sun. And I think that living space should also live and grow with you. So I believe it's really important for tomorrow's house to always revolve around natural light.
I think we have to look to be more local with everything. I think that for a while we became too global, and I think we're relying too much on finding things in other countries and getting things from far away. And I really believe in being as local as possible. In these days, we have local people doing really great things and we're not using them enough. We need to source as many things in our own countries to be able to expand, to do different things, but I think we're relying too much on outside. We're trying to source as many things as close to home as possible because, we're working in Italy. And there they have many great makers, people who make things traditionally and manufacturers. So everything we can do, we try to get it close to home because it's possible. I would like that the new house looks more to the past, so that we use more traditional materials, local suppliers, and to be a place that is more to do with rest and relaxation.
One of the most important things for my company and for me is to work with sustainable projects. You can't always ask for a client to do a project that is 100% sustainable, but we always try to have a sustainable angle to our projects. I think I see myself and my company in quite a lot of different roles in this industry. We're both product designers, but we're also consultants helping external companies in many different ways. We've been working very focused and very closely together on projects. So we have fewer projects because some were canceled due to the pandemic, but also because we really want to focus more and do what we really want to do. So we have fewer but better projects. We've had a lot of international clients, and that's of course the same. So we've been very used to doing meetings and stuff online. Well, I think the most important thing about your own home and the place that you live is that you're surrounded by the things that you really love. So rather a few really, really good things than a lot of things. The art of creating the best place for yourself is to choose to surround yourself with things that matters. Things can matter in many, many different ways. It can be art, it could be something that adds to your identity when it comes to sustainability, politics, stuff like that.
Our work spans across the world, so we work in Asia, the US, Europe, Scandinavia. So, of course, we had to adapt, but the impact of COVID-19 has hit in different timings and different ways across the world. So we've had to adapt in different ways, but in general I've seen much more focus on the residential part of our work rather than the hospitality, restaurants and such. So that's been the biggest adaptation we have to do. Of course, we also had to adjust in the ways that we work. So that means less time at the office, more times in online meetings and such. But it's all things that we're pretty used to. So in that way, I think we've adapted quite well. I think in our studio we have always sought out and promoted collaborative work. That's with kindred spirits from across the world. When we try to find the inspiration for a new project, it's very important that we don't stay behind the screen in many ways. We need input to get kind of the output that we are looking for. And cultural inspiration is a huge part of that. So that means traveling when we could, but now it's more interviews and reading up on stories. In our studio, we work both with more commercial aspect of the market, but also in the more artistic way. So we try to balance out with bigger companies and smaller production, like artisans and stuff. A good example would be that we work in Japan at the moment for the largest wooden furniture manufacturer there. But we've promoted or tried to persuade them to go into more local production, supporting smaller companies in the area. For instance, we've just worked with a small 200-year-old Kyoto-based lantern maker. So in that way, we see a lot of potential in the kind of mass production, big commercial companies, aligning with the smaller local productions.
Due to the COVID situation, we've been living in strange times. People have been spending much more time at home, living, working, eating, and taking care of their kids in their homes. And I think that the design industry will have to reconsider of how we organize our homes, how we can sort of like split it up a bit more than we've been used to living and working in one room. So I think that'll be interesting to see how that will develop. I think it's quite important given the whole situation about sustainability, climate changes. I think we have to open our minds and start dialogues with other professions. We have to start speaking with historians, people working with archaeology, and learning from each other. I think that'll be important due to the whole climate change and sustainability and how we keep sort of like things evolving, you know, to get inspiration from other sections of the world. That'll be, I think that'll be good for everybody. Well, it's interesting to talk about the future because nobody knows what's coming, but I can start guessing by looking back in time where Poul Henningsen, the Danish lamp designer, did The House of Tomorrow in 1959. And his take on how the future would look like from his point of view at that time didn't come to reality, but some of his works still function today, even though some of his very first pieces of design are still in production and we live with them. I don't think that we'll have a revolution. It'll be more like adapting to what's going on. Mostly people will start dividing their homes into sections, I think.
Well, I think one of the most important challenges that the design industry must face today is not being caught up by the pace of fashion, trying to slow down. I think it's super important that we start thinking about making simple, good, durable products that actually meet real needs. I think people, they talk so much about sustainability today, and everybody's trying to figure out how to produce in new ways, how to limit transportation, do local production, use new materials. But I think maybe the easiest answer is to make fewer, better products. Well, my company is approaching this new challenge globally by working with kindred spirits all over the world. I mean, for many years, most of our projects have been outside of Denmark. So we've been lucky enough to establish collaborations with local architects, designers, and like-minded creatives all over the world. And luckily for us, we've been set up digitally to manage this challenge in a good way, where we can rely on really skillful partners all over the world. I think that tomorrow's house might look a little bit like the Audo where we're sitting today. I think there's a blurring of lines between what was previously considered a home. It could be a place like this, but it could also be a home that is also now your workplace, and it's also something that you use as a place of hospitality that you either lend out to friends or rent on Airbnb or whatever. So there's definitely a new way of us decorating the different spaces that we occupy, where we need to consider all aspects of life.
It's been a challenge to work with materials and interiors and context. We work a lot with colors and mixing colors and pigments, and to do that with our collaborators has also been a challenge because it's been on a distance. So we have found ways, alternative ways of working together, and then I think that in the end, the result, we are really proud of that. And it also gave us actually a longer span of time to work, or since that our deadline has been postponed, that also did that we actually were able to have a final work that we're satisfied with. I think definitely it's important that we slow down and that we are more present in the moment, since we're surrounded by so many things all the time. It is really essential to both be surrounded by physical objects that appeal to our senses in tomorrow's house, but also to be more connected to each other and not to screens all the time. So I think that's actually the main part. Then of course also you can say that there are a lot added to that, to how to do it. That's the big challenge for designers and architects at the moment, is how to make spaces that can both appeal to our senses and then also all the different functions that I think will be added to our home. In Atelier Plateau, we work really local, and I think that it is really important as designers and architects to think of the whole process of what we produce, that we hopefully will leave a smaller footprint on the earth.
We've been working with the Audo to display our vintage items here in the house so people can see what we can offer. Well, the challenge is to find these old designers and look into who they are. Everybody knows Wiener and Berthelsen, but there's a lot more who are not that well known and who have made incredible furniture. To do this, we have to do some heavy research. I think that it is the mixing with the vintage furniture, vintage accessories with newer design. At home we have this, we have the Taylor sofa by Menu. Just next to it we have a Wiener easy chair from the 60s. And the combination between those I think is perfect for me and my family. It's a good way to connect the past and the future.